It's all over the place.
Well, hi, friends. Lovely to see you here, to be with you. I had quite an adventure last night. I was the officiant at the Chinese garden for the memorial service for Millicent NATO. And the highlight of the evening for me was an amazing place. The place where I was speaking from, and where the grand piano was, is like an island that goes out into this pond, and I started with the thus should you look upon this changing world, all component things are impermanent, with the big gong from the center. But as I was having everyone look around into the night sky and to look into the trees and to be aware of seeing and doing that, a large great blue heron flew in, fluttered over the lake, came up behind me, in again, and then went and parked somewhere. I was just, how Anne, my friend Anne, how she managed to arrange that, I don't know, but it was really a nice touch. A nice touch. So, here we are. The days are getting shorter, noticeably. I have this kind of metronome thing that I get up at a little after 6. And for a while there, it was light, and now it's dark. Remarkable. And I have no control over it, or anything else, that, I guess, except perhaps a little influence on this mind, on the intentions of this person. This that takes itself to be a person. All right. Here we have a lovely reading. It's from The Sun magazine, February 2005. It's by Kathy Kelly. My father was the second oldest of 7 children. His mother died of a brain tumor when he was 17. His father, a violent alcoholic who had beaten his wife, promptly abandoned the children. The younger ones were placed in foster care or in the Catholic home for working boys. My dad kept track of them all, hoping to bring them together under one roof someday. He never did. My grandfather held an inexplicable grudge against my father. He would mail Dad postcards from seaports around the world that read, "Dear Jim, I'm alive, no thanks to you." Toward the end of his life, my grandfather lived on the street in New York City. My dad paid the owner of a flop house my grandfather frequented to make sure his father always had a meal and a bed. My grandfather died in that flophouse of tuberculosis sometime in the 30s. My father did not tell me these stories until I had kids of my own. By then I was mad at my dad because his own drinking had made our home a scary place for me as a child. I was mad at my mom because she'd been so passive, hardly ever getting out of bed. I was mad at my brother for leaving home and never looking back. I was mad at my sister for being everyone's favorite. I felt the world owed me one big apology. My mom had plenty of time to apologize as she lay dying, but she didn't. My dad didn't apologize for his drinking, but he did get sober. That was apology enough for me. It was a pleasure to listen to him hum a tune as he stood on a ladder in my house making electrical repairs for me and the kids. I'm older now. And I've learned what a mistake it is to wait around for people to apologize. A wise person once said that holding on to anger is like eating rat poison and expecting the rat to die. No longer do I look down on people who offend me, extending forgiveness from my lofty perch. I understand now how limited we all are by circumstances, time, place, history, and luck. We humans are a frail lot. Compassion seems to be the only thing that saves us. No longer do I look down on people who offend me, extending forgiveness from my lofty perch. I understand now how limited we all are by circumstances, time, place, history, and luck. We humans are a frail lot. Compassion seems to be the only thing that saves us. Wow. I want to read this other poem that I finished with last night. Oh yeah, it'll be under recent. Here it is. Speaking of not holding grudges and not being superior, it comes to us from our earlier inhabitants of this continent, the Aztec. Oh, only for a short while have you loaned us to each other. Because we take form in your act of drawing us, and we take life in your painting us. But only for a short while you have loaned us to each other. Because even a drawing cut into crystalline obsidian fades. And even the green feathers, the crown feathers of the quetzal bird, lose their color. And even the sounds of the waterfall die out in the dry season. So we too, because only for a short while have you loaned us to each other. So we're on loan. Let's do something really important together. Let's be here. Let's notice the life of the body. It is alive right now. Let's notice that it makes contact with the chair. Notice that it breathes in and out. that it harbors something very mysterious, which is awareness. There's something so utterly simple about sitting here. Sitting here aware of the life in the hands. Sitting here aware of the life in the face. There may well be thoughts. There could be attacks or visitations of the hindrances, either solo or in packs. Restless, agitated mind, or desiring, wanting, or disliking, or sleepy dullness. Or maybe even doubt. There could be emotions. Sadness, happiness. There could be moods. You might have awakened in a mood this morning. It could still be hanging on like those clouds that get stuck in the valley in the mountains sometimes. Unfortunately, we have the wherewithal, we have awareness, we have mindfulness, which lights up what's happening. So come home to now, sitting and breathing, with each breath. having a beginning. The mind is very competent at creating thoughts. As awareness grows, we can notice the nature of the thoughts and the content of the thoughts. And how many of them are the story of I, me, and mine. The song of the self. And it's not that this is a bad thing, it's just an unfortunate delusion, because it creates something to protect. So we notice the mind thinking, selfing, and return to the simplicity of the body that sits here. Each breath appears really out of nowhere. It doesn't exist. And then it does. There's no explaining this. It's just the way of life. And we can use the sensations of this breath as our home base, as our primary meditation object. We can also expand it to include the entirety of the body. So we don't abandon the sensations of breathing, but we include as well the toes and the feet and the legs, the pelvis, all the life that cradles in the pelvis, the sacrum in the back, and the abdomen, solar plexus, and the chest. It's all alive, isn't it? The fingers. Notice how you can sense the fourth finger of the left hand or the index finger of the right hand. Awareness of the arms, the elbows, the upper arms, the shoulders, the armpits. Awareness of the neck, present in the neck, in the front, the back, the sides, the middle. Noticing that the face is alive. The breath comes and goes here as well. We can notice it at the nostrils. We can notice it at the ears, the scalp, life. So we sit here with a home base in the body, in reality, in this moment. Sometimes the mind will become very quiet. There will just be the breath coming and going. Perhaps a vagrant thought every now and then. At other times, there will be some pressure to worry about something, to figure something out, to analyze something, to criticize oneself or others. Or we become embedded in a mood, an energy state. Sometimes there's a complete crush of thoughts. Can hardly find the breath. At such moments, don't even try to find the breath. Just be aware of the nature of the mind in those moments. There's the simple but incredibly powerful teaching from Ajahn Chah. Anytime we wish to bring our practice into perfect balance, we simply remember this moment is like this. It's like this. As the delusion in the mind clears, as awareness dawns like a beautiful sunrise. All the various structures are brought into very sharp focus. The hindrances are pretty obvious. Moods become more obvious. And the fact that the past is over becomes more obvious. We discover that the past is a class of thoughts that exist now. The Buddha said, those who cherish, she did this to me, he did this to me, will never awaken. That has to go, has to be illuminated as the delusion that it is. It doesn't mean that things didn't happen, but they are over. Sometimes there's grieving we have to do. Sometimes there's raging and tears. Sometimes there's boundaries to set. Sometimes there's legal action even that has to be taken. But here, deep in the heart, where freedom is the goal, we can remember the last paragraph of this reading this morning. No longer do I look down on people who offend me, extending forgiveness from my lofty perch. I understand now how limited we all are by circumstances, time, place, history, and luck. Karma. We humans are a frail lot. Compassion seems to be the only thing that saves me. There are places, there are thoughts we get stuck on. And it helps so much to clarify them in oneself, to remember the thing or things that, quote, you did in the past that caused harm, where you still hold a grudge against yourself. I should have done this differently. I shouldn't have done that. Remembering the truth of the past, that it really is over. It is unchangeable. Something is changeable, however, which is our relationship to it. And perhaps the words help. I forgive myself, or talk to yourself as the younger person. I forgive you. I relinquish the grudge. Reminding yourself how you learned from things you did that were unskillful and how you wouldn't do them now. how obvious it is you wouldn't do them now. So why hold the grudge? And coming here into the present, I aspire to love and accept myself exactly as I am in this moment. And whenever I'm hurting, no matter how I'm hurting, and there are so many ways that we hurt, I intend to hold myself in sweet compassion. And please now let us create images about, fantasies about, something that we call the future. Do you have a to-do list for today? I do. Do you have plans? Why not imagine yourself carrying them out calmly, quietly, with some delight? Or if you have onerous things to do today, painful, difficult confrontation to have, perhaps. Setting an aspiration to do it kindly, to do it with clarity, to do it with compassion. To inhabit the present moment fully. May all beings everywhere share in the merits of our practice. May those close to us, near and dear to us, share in the merits of our practice. May beings we've never met share in the merits of our practice. Human beings, animal beings, fish beings, tree beings, insects. May my practice bring me into the mysterious awareness of the truth of all this. Part of the ceremony last night, very near the end, part of the Obon ceremony of Japan, which happens around this time, actually. I learned a bunch about it just in the last couple of days. The people light fires in their front yards, little beacons, which call the spirits of the dead. That at this time of year, it's very much like, there's an incredible movie called Coco, if you've not seen it. It's awesome movie. It's about the Day of the Dead in Mexico. It's a very similar practice. Anyway, in Japan, they have this few days when families come from all over the country. They all get back together to do it's like Thanksgiving in a way. But it's honoring the dead, and they go to the cemetery and they pour water in their ritual fashion over the stones, and they have conversations with their dead, and finish old business probably happens a lot. But anyway, part of it is at the end of the ceremony. They in Japan will put little candles on little boats, and then they'll send them floating off into, which would be dangerous around here, wouldn't it? But anyway, it's a perfectly safe place there. And they didn't use candles; they used little tiny electric lights. Anyway, there were about 150 maybe little floating white, beautiful little paper-looking things, and they floated out onto the lake, and they were moving around, and I recognized the piece that the violinist and the pianist were playing, and I took a few moments. I took the mind intentionally to, this is in honor of the ancestors. And then suddenly, I remembered those people who played the role of my parents. I don't think of them a lot. It's been a long time. And suddenly I was having paroxysms of incredible grief, sobbing along with the music. And I was quite private where I was. Remembering these people who I lived with. I can't remember their voices, what they sounded like. Maybe I can. But anyway, there was this opening up of the door to the grief of loss, that they're gone. It's amazing. So honoring our ancestors, I think, is a really worthy thing. One thing that's axiomatic for me, and I truly believe it, is that they did the best they could. And I believe that's true for all of us. Given our conditioning, given just depending upon what our level of trauma is. And then we do our best to take responsibility through our practice and through the precepts. So, I forgot to turn on my light. Oh my goodness, I've been ill lit all morning. There, that should be much better. Funny. So I have a couple of announcements. One is that I will be absent for the next 10 days. When do I return? I forget the date. I think it's tell you in a moment. I think I will. Here it is, getting close. Uh-oh. I will be back on the 2nd. There's suddenly a machine noise. Are you unmuted, Jim?
I was just going to tell you that Gregory hopes you're back on the 2nd, because that's what he told me.
Okay, it's the 2nd. Good. Do you have machines in the background there or something? There's a lot of noise. Anyway, not to worry. The other thing I want to announce, Jim is teaching tomorrow a Qigong meditation morning till 1, till 2, Jim?
And it'll go from 9 till 1, in spite of our attempts to change all the different announcements on the different digests and the website. It's all different, but it usually peters out around 1 o'clock. We get claustrophobic in these little boxes.
I see. Well, maybe you should just plan on calling it at 1. Done.
Yeah, we've done that, but it doesn't get communicated to all the different pages.
I see.
We live in such a complex scheduling world.
It's a lot. The other thing is this. Can you mute yourself, Jim? Lots of noise.
Really?
Yeah, there's like a machine running in the background or something, it's white. It's like sort of not quite white noise, but it sounds like something's running. It may be in the electronics. Anyway. It is my honor and privilege to be able to say, you may have received in your mailbox a letter from PIMC. If you didn't receive it, it's in the chat. A link to it is in the chat. And it describes the extraordinary thing that we're doing there to make the place wheelchair accessible, and to take the first step in the seismic upgrade. All the offices downstairs will have 2 feet of their ceiling removed along the wall, along the external wall, and then they're going to be doing something with every joist, every crossbar, which is in preparation for, in the next 7 years, we're going to do another major project, another major piece of it, in which the Dharma Hall will actually get smaller. Every 16 inches along the side of the Dharma Hall, there will be a 2x8, which will go from the floor to the ceiling. And then there will be insulation, and then plywood, and then sheetrock on top of that. And that those new boards, those new 2x8s, which will be 17 feet long, each one of them, they will then hold up the roof in an earthquake. So we're investing in the long-term well-being of everybody. And we are all going to face very challenging times. With aging, with sickness, with climate change, and with the degradation of the culture, entropy, and challenge. And we are going to need each other more than ever. And that's what PIMC is about, is creating community. And so we each have the opportunity to participate in this. First order of business is to practice and to participate in gatherings and so on. But there's another, which is to invest in our spiritual home. And so I invite you to, thanks, Jim, with the Sun article. You're invited. We invite all of us, who are all participants, when that letter comes, to sit with it for a little while and to really reflect on it. Don't deal with it as one more thing. Oh, here's another thing asking for my money. Damn it, I hate it. But to look at it, I can participate in this. I can actually give till my heart feels full. It's a very interesting practice. I've done it for decades. At the end of retreats, when I've been a participant in a retreat, sitting there with my checkbook in front of the Dana bowl. And so what can I do? What am I moved to do? It's a wonderful practice. And then it'll catch fire in you, and you'll find that you love being generous, and you find more and more opportunities. Boy, I drove past. I couldn't stop yesterday. Couldn't stop. That's an interesting thing. But anyway, there was a young woman, maybe a teenager with a baby, coming out of Trader Joe's. So a lot of opportunities to be generous to ourselves and to others. So that's enough from me. Be quiet, Robert. Is there anything you folks would like to share? Oh, I put the obsidian poem, the Quetzalbird poem, in the chat. Amy, were you going to say something? You're unmuted.
No, sorry. Accidental.
It was a pocket on mute.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey Jim, I'm drawing a blank. Can you remind me the book that Ruth King wrote, the famous one?
It's mindful of race.
Oh, duh, right. Thank you. Yeah, I listened to that recently. One of my books from my trip is How to Be an Anti-Racist. Hmm. I hear it's really good.
Good morning, Robert.
David,
Hi, how are you?
be well, be well, be well.
Not yet. Soon.
I just thought I'd get the drop on you.
That's funny. So I hope your trip is renewing and relaxing, Robert. So and coming up. So
Me too.
yeah. And good morning, Sangha. So I just want to comment on the you read a poem a few days ago by Wendell Berry called "The Peace of Wild Things."
Oh yeah.
And there's a line in that that has come to my practice in my life recently that I've thought of often, and that is, I come to the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with the forethought of grief.
Yeah.
And I find that it's really, really useful because a lot of suffering arises from anticipation of suffering. And the suffering itself may arise, but it's rarely how I imagine it to be. So I find the poem quite useful, and so thanks for sharing that. And yeah, just a comment, not so much questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. It does. It does seem absurd if you think about it for a moment. Oh no, this is going to hurt in the future when this happens. Oh no, I feel terrible now about this that's going to happen in the future. It really is insane. I mean, normal but weird.
I struggle with that, Robert, because there's a two-edged sword to it. Because your Aztec poem this morning, we are only on loan to each other for a short time. That immediately stirs up feelings of grief and sorrow. That these people are going to go away.
Or does it stir up delight and bliss?
Well, that's a two-edged coin.
Yeah.
Which side of the coin do you fall on? And unfortunately, my instinct is to go for the "oh my God, no" side of it. But thanks, David. That is helpful.
David and David.
On the island here, I sometimes do a part-time job, and for a while yesterday when I was working, every guy who came was named David. It was astounding. There are so many Davids in this world. It's amazing.
My wife's ex-husband and her brother are David. That gets complicated.
Good morning, Sangha. My name's not David, but Jessica Timmons.
Oh, you got me. Oh dear, go ahead.
I just wanted to share because for some reason David's comment did really related to me somehow. Last night I did a practice with a group that at the outset I thought was, wow, why are we going to this place? It's too big. We can't do anything. What's it all about? And we were just sorting through a lot of grief about just the state of affairs and how big and insurmountable so many things seem. And so the group leader just said, if you could, change anything, just make it better, what would you do? And it's kind of a practice we did, I think, once in the beginning with a nonviolent communication class, where you just put down, what do you think everyone needs? But in this case, it's like, what would you fix? And so slowly, and then it got faster and faster, people started putting out everything, like their heart's desires. And some would preface and say, okay, I'm not trying to get into politics, but universal income, or I'm not trying to change someone's mind, but housing for everyone. And the more we did it, interestingly, the more people just kind of relaxed. It's like when you put it out there as that dream, and that's what she said, let's share our dreams. Let's share, if I really could just change things and really see a fundamental resolution. And deep inside, part of me was like, yeah, that's maybe not. But on the other hand, it was really, I don't know, it was really nice at the end of it. It's like deflating that overinflated balloon, just kind of eased it down, and everyone had a chance to put it out there. And somehow that was incredibly, just incredibly joyful, even though we were laying out there a lot of things that dealt with some very real, sorrowful, painful things right now. So I don't know why, I just felt that. It's kind of that facing the grief, I guess, of sorts. Maybe that's why it resonates.
Thanks, Jessica. Speaking of realities, I didn't hear yesterday. I will get an update today that PIMC is slowly making its way to the head of the line where we will be given pre-issuance, which then means it will be only 2 more weeks before the permit is issued. And given this, it now looks like our entrance return to the building will be mid-November. It's just so slow. And then a few eye blinks later, it'll be, you remember 10 years ago when we couldn't get in the center for a year? No, will I be here in 10 years? I don't know. Hope so. But probably the building will be, and the life of PIMC will be. Well, anybody else have something you'd like to share, please?
Hi, Sangha. It's Birch.
Hello, Birch.
Thank you for all showing up. It's a joy to be present with each of you together. I wonder if, Robert, you could say a little bit about how the hindrances feed each other. And just a little context. The term fixing has come up, and I had a constellation session with somebody this weekend, and this needing to let go of fixing. And I was thinking about how fixing is both grasping and aversion, and there's delusion, how the self gets in the center of this boxing match. I was thinking about fixing from the perspective of men and that kind of cultural conditioning. I'm doing a lot of work around fathers right now, and I had this gift of the experience of having some deep conversations with my dead, the ancestors, and specifically with some of my fathers, one of whose name is David. And the remarkable thing, by not having to fix the relationship with my dead, is that 2 days later, my stepmother contacted me and just said, "Oh, I'm finally, after 8 years, putting his ashes to rest." So it was like right after this deep, intimate conversation of letting go, of fixing my relationship with him, a sense of peace and, I won't say resolution, but a quality of peace seemed to flow from one event naturally to the other. So I'm kind of I'm in this position of this letting go of how the conditioning of an experience, and yet still curious about how these hindrances are literally fixating rather than the surrendering of impermanence into the flowing of. So I'm just in that place of, here's the natural good feeling of flowing, and here's that stuckness where the hindrances are hold in the holden pattern. I'm not sure if that all makes sense, but it's just kind of what's arising. I wonder if you could say a little bit about how those hindrances are dependent on each other.
Mm. Well, they do come in packs. You can have restlessness and agitation and hatred, and they go together very well. And they feed each other. You can have restlessness and greed, and they feed each other really well. I think you're asking or speaking to something very deep. And at first, we don't even see the hindrances. We don't know they're there. We are them. And then enough concentration and mindfulness and the other enlightenment factors grow, and maybe we clean up our moral and ethical trip. Maybe we reduce or eliminate intoxication, and so we start getting clearer. And then we start noticing the hindrances really as phenomena, but we're still very identified with them. And then they start becoming more apparent. And then there's various strategies for working with each one. And the primary strategy is awareness. But like around hatred, there's all kinds of practices, loving kindness and giving the object of the hatred a gift. And so there's various strategies for, quote, working with them. And then it would seem that there's an evolution that it becomes apparent that there's nothing to do about them and no one to do anything anyway. And there's no work to be done. And that no one's having a hindrance, and the hindrances are not occurring to someone. They're just what they are. And they are by then are at that, well, then they're arising and passing away on their own, like everything else.
I'm curious why that brings up a sadness to hear that.
It brings up sadness. That's interesting.
I mean, because I know it's not about a bypassing of any of it, the conditioned self. Yeah, maybe that's the nature of compassion, its own experience. So, yeah, not a sadness in terms of a gripping. Just, perhaps the way you spoke it, that there's a simplicity. The tragedy, perhaps, is that it is so simple when it's moments of clarity come.
Your comments just now have provoked in this person it's greed, hatred, and ignorance that are driving people to impose their ideology on Afghanistan right now. It's everywhere. The hindrances and then the identification with them are what lead to much of the suffering in the world. And to discover that they are impersonal and there's no one doing anything. It's like, why didn't we start there? Why does the world have to be so difficult? Well, and the Buddha said greed, hatred, and ignorance. And that we as individuals can really do something about it. I had an unrelated thought. It's come back several times. In your sitting practice, if you're struggling with your posture, if it's hard to make it for this 45 minutes that we sit, then I encourage you try a different posture. Get a little low back support. I sit on this balance chair. You can sort of see me coming back and forth, coming in and out. It's a beautiful chair. I sit on it, and my knees are below my hips, and I've got a little bit of low back support, which is, I could except for the fact that it makes my pain in my low back, difficult from sitting. But I can sit here for an hour or two without it being very painful at all. So if you're struggling with posture, I encourage you to think of that, because we have some very strong ideas about, well, if I have to be sitting in a particular way for it to be spiritual, and every posture is the spiritual posture, according to the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Move this here. There. Well, anything else anyone wants to share? Standing meditation is underrated. Hadley.
I have a reminder. For the past 4 years, I've been involved with contributing and supporting the brain injury community we're creating. And we have a celebration or party tomorrow, which you're invited to come, but you must wear a mask. And if you're not vaccinated, please don't come. And we're having a public party called Multnomah Days at our bakery in Multnomah Village. And we're going to be celebrating our gourmet cupcakes and baking items. And if you care to come on over, it's going to be all day, meaning anywhere between 9 and 5. There's no parade this year, but we're celebrating what all the merchants in Multnomah Village are doing.
Yeah, great.
So you're invited.
Mm-hmm. I can attest to the high quality of the cupcakes that come from this cerebellum bakery. The staff are all right too.
Yeah. Organic gourmet cupcakes.
Right. And they have some that are, gluten-free and
vegan.
Yeah. They also have some that are really decadently sweet.
Yes.
The kind you shouldn't have. Well, anything else before we go? I think I did this yesterday. I learned from Shelley Graff, who was here helping us begin our diversity, equity, and belonging process. She was here on Saturday for some hours. They were here on Saturday for some hours. Boy, it's hard for me to do that, to remember that. Getting the pronouns right. So reflexive. Anyway, they introduced us to a very simple greeting, which goes like this, and I want to do it call and response. Okay, we'll do it 3 times through. It's short. So it's from Ruth King, who's the author of Mindful of Race, which is a great book, very interesting. So let's do it call and response if you'd like to unmute. And it goes like this. If I didn't belong to you, you wouldn't be here.
If I didn't belong to you, you wouldn't be here.
You wouldn't be here.
If you didn't belong to me, you wouldn't have come.
If you didn't belong to me,
you wouldn't have come.
you wouldn't have come.
My heart and your heart are very old friends.
My heart
and
your
very old
friend.
If I didn't belong to you, I wouldn't be here.
If I didn't belong to you, I wouldn't be here.
If you didn't belong to me, you wouldn't have come.
If you didn't belong to me, you wouldn't have come.
My heart and your heart are very old friends.
My heart and your heart are very old friends.
Isn't this a nice thing to say to each other? If I didn't belong to you, I wouldn't be here.
If I didn't belong to you, I wouldn't be here.
If you didn't belong to me, you wouldn't have come.
If you didn't belong to me, you wouldn't have come.
My heart and your heart are very old friends.
My heart. Very old.
David.
So, dear ones, I hope you have a very fine time here in the mornings on my absence. I will certainly be sitting with you from the various places I'm going to be unplugged in. And I will delight in... I just remembered something. At a moment like this, it's powerful. I was with Achan Amaro and maybe 10 other people in the teacher's cabin at Cloud Mountain. And we were sitting in the cabin. Most of the retreatants had left, so it was kind of a semi-intimate gathering. And we were having a lovely time. We'd been there an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And the student who was taking him to the airport came in sort of a flurry and said, Achan Amaro, we have to go or you might miss your flight. So it was like it's ending. And he said, well, I'll see you next time. And then he said, if there is a next time, maybe there won't be. And if that's the case, it was wonderful being with you. So may we meet again. May it be so.
Peace and prosper.
Bon voyage.
Bye-bye.
Go east, young man. Go east.
Thank you
Be
so
well,
much.
be well, be well.
Thank you so much. I can go now. The morning is complete. Thank you for bringing your beautiful selves and faces here. Bye-bye.
Bye. Be well, everyone.
Bye, David.
Okay. Goodbye, dear friends on Facebook and YouTube. I'm clicking my way in. There it is. There's the control.